In the twilight of the 19th century, as European powers sliced Africa into empires, a quiet tension simmered deep within the Ashanti lands of what is now Ghana. The sacred drums were silent, the Golden Stool, the soul of the Ashanti nation, sat untouched, revered, guarded by centuries of tradition. And then a demand came from far across the seas. The British wanted the stool. What followed was not just a military conflict, it was a spiritual awakening, and at the heart of it stood a woman history could never forget. Her name was Yaa Asantewaa, a queen mother, a regent, a voice that thundered when kings went silent. At a time when British rule seemed inevitable and the Ashanti people were disoriented by the capture of their king, it was she, a woman in her 70s, who rose to defend not just a kingdom, but a culture, a spirit, and a people's pride. This is not just the story of a queen. It is the story of resistance carved into gold and guarded by ancestors. Yaa Asantewaa did not merely fight with weapons. She fought with memory, tradition, and the fire of the ancestors in her blood. She would go on to lead the War of the Golden Stool in 1900, commanding an army, besieging a British fort, and inspiring a movement that would echo for generations. Her name would become a symbol across Ghana, West Africa, and eventually the world. But who was she before the war? What shaped her into a leader of nations? What does the Golden Stool truly represent? And why does Yaa Asantewaa's voice still call to us from the echoes of time? This is her story of royalty, rebellion, and resilience. This is the legend of the queen who dared to defy an empire. To understand Yaa Asantewaa, you must first understand the power she rose to defend, the Ashanti Empire and its most sacred symbol, the Golden Stool, founded in the late 1600s. The British-Ashanti Empire rose in the heart of West Africa, uniting powerful clans under a golden central ruler, the Ashanti. It was a kingdom built on strength, diplomacy, and deep spiritual connection. The Ashanti were known for their advanced political systems, military prowess, and rich culture, but above all, they were known for their sacred symbol of unity, the Sika Dwa Kofi, or Golden Stool. This was not a throne to be sat upon. The Golden Stool was believed to contain the soul of the Ashanti nation, the collective spirit of the living, the dead, and the unborn. It descended, legend says, from the heavens itself, guided by the priest Okomfo Anakiai. During the coronation of the first king, it was not merely a seat of power, it was power incarnate. To the Ashanti, to touch the stool uninvited was an affront, not just to a people, but to their very essence. By the late 1800s, the Ashanti had fought several wars with the British, who had their eyes on gold, trade routes, and territory after capturing Ashanti Empire in 1896 and exiling him to the Seychelles. The British believed they had finally broken Ashanti resistance. But then came a request that would ignite a fire across the land. The British governor, Sir Frederick Hodgson, demanded to sit on the Golden Stool. To the British, it was a symbol of dominance. To the Ashanti, it was spiritual desecration. The chiefs were stunned. Silence fell across the land. Leadership had been fractured. The king was gone. Morale was low. The colonizers believed the Ashanti were broken, but they had forgotten one thing. Yaa Asantewaa was watching, listening, waiting, and when the chiefs hesitated, she rose. The sacred drums would beat again. In the royal court of Ijisu, one of the powerful states within the Ashanti Confederacy, Yaa Asantewaa held a position unlike any other. She was Queen Mother, not merely the mother of a king, but a matriarch of political power and ancestral wisdom in Ashanti tradition. Queen mothers were custodians of culture, advisors to kings, and voices of the people. But by 1990, there was no king to advise. Ashanti Empire, I had been captured and exiled. Ashanti men in leadership wavered under the pressure of British demands. Some counseled caution, others silence. Yet in this moment of hesitation, it was Yaa Asantewaa who stood, raised her voice, and changed the course of history, according to oral tradition. In a room full of uncertain chiefs, she issued a challenge that shook the walls of power. If you, the men of Ashanti, will not fight, then we, the women, will. We will fight till the last of us falls in the battlefields. It was more than a speech, it was a summons. Her words rekindled the warrior spirit that had once defined the empire. Her defiance became a battle cry for a people on the brink of losing everything sacred. Recognizing her courage and conviction, the Ashanti Council named Yaa Asantewaa the leader of the Ashanti resistance. At around 70 years old, she was now a general, a strategist, a national commander, the first and only woman to lead an Ashanti army. In war, she rallied an estimated 5,000 warriors, men and women, to rise against the British forces in Kumasi. With the Golden Stool at stake, the people answered her call. Yaa Asantewaa had no illusions. She was up against a global empire with rifles and reinforcements. But what she held was far greater: ancestral authority, moral clarity, and the heartbeat of a people who refused to let their soul be taken. While drums began to beat, the Queen had risen, and with her, so had a nation. The year was 1990. Ashanti lands bristled with tension. From the forests and valleys of the Gold Coast, a movement surged, not led by a king or prince, but by Queen Mother, Yaa Asantewaa. She commanded warriors not just with orders, but with conviction. Her cause was sacred, the defense of the Golden Stool, the soul of the Ashanti nation. With over 5,000 warriors under her command, Yaa Asantewaa launched a resistance unlike any seen before in subdued West Africa. Her forces laid siege to the British fort in Kumasi, cutting off supplies and communication, surrounding the garrison with determination and tactical brilliance. She didn't just send warriors, she organized battalions, constructed barriers, and masterminded a campaign that stunned British officials. Inside the fort, British Governor Frederick Hodgson and his troops found themselves trapped for weeks. The very government that had underestimated the spiritual power of the Golden Stool was now at the mercy of a queen they never expected, though poorly equipped compared to the British. Yaa Asantewaa's fighters used the terrain to their advantage: dense forests, hidden trails, and night raids. They knew every tree, every stream. They weren't just fighting for territory, they were fighting for identity. For months, the Ashanti resistance held strong. The British, surprised and embarrassed by their vulnerability, called for reinforcements from Sierra Leone and Nigeria. With time, modern weapons and overwhelming numbers tipped the balance. Eventually, the siege was broken. The resistance was forced to retreat. Yet even in defeat, Asantewaa never surrendered. She was eventually captured and exiled, but her courage had already left its mark. The British never found the Golden Stool. It had been hidden, protected by loyal elders, buried in secrecy, and kept from the British hands. The spiritual heart of the Ashanti people remained intact. The war of the Golden Stool wasn't just a military struggle, it was a spiritual one. And though the British retained political control, they could never claim the soul of the Ashanti. The Queen had risen, and in doing so, awakened a fire that no empire could extinguish. After months of fierce resistance, the Ashanti uprising led by Yaa Asantewaa began to strain under the weight of British military reinforcements. Armed with advanced weaponry and supported by British troops from neighboring territories, the British eventually overwhelmed the defenders. But even as defeat loomed, Yaa Asantewaa refused to surrender easily. She fought not for glory or conquest, but for principle, for the dignity of her people and the protection of their spiritual legacy. Her leadership in the field remained defiant, even as her forces dwindled. She continued to inspire loyalty, urging her warriors to defend their land until the last possible moment. Eventually, Yaa Asantewaa was captured and, like King Prempeh before her, exiled to the Seychelles Islands far off the East African coast. No, along with other royal figures and leaders, she was separated from the land she had vowed to defend, but even in exile, her spirit did not fade. On the Seychelles, she lived her remaining years in quiet dignity. Though cut off from her kingdom, she remained a revered figure among the exiled Ashanti. Her presence was a reminder of the cost of resistance and the honor it brings. She died in exile in 1921, never to return to her homeland, but news of her resistance had spread far beyond Ashanti borders. Nanap, she had become a symbol of strength not just to her people, but to freedom fighters across Africa and the diaspora. Even the British, in later reports, acknowledged her bravery, her leadership, and the uncommon unity she inspired among the Ashanti. The woman they tried to silence with exile had in truth planted seeds. And in the years to come, those seeds would grow into movements of identity, independence, and the unbreakable memory of a queen who never bowed. Yaa Asantewaa may have passed in exile, but her spirit returned home, stronger, louder, and more eternal than ever. A resistance lived on in the hearts of the Ashanti people, in the sacred rhythms of the drum, in the whispered stories told by elders, and in the proud stance of generations yet to come. Today, Yaa Asantewaa is remembered as one of Ghana's greatest heroes. Her name is taught in schools, carved into monuments, and chanted in festivals. Statues stand in her honor, not as cold bronze relics, but as living reminders of what courage looks like when tested by fire. She's a symbol of female leadership, not only in West Africa, but globally. Her legacy has empowered countless women to challenge norms, to rise in leadership, and to protect what matters most: culture, identity, and community. In 2000, exactly a century after the War of the Golden Stool, Ghana declared the year of Yaa Asantewaa. Her memory was celebrated across the nation, in music, in art, and in ceremony. And in the town of Ejisu, where her journey began, a museum was built to preserve her story. Her words, "If you, the men, will not fight, we the women will," have become more than defiance. They are a promise, a rallying cry, a declaration that no voice, no matter how underestimated, is too small to change history. And perhaps her most profound legacy lies not just in what she resisted, but in what she protected: the Golden Stool, the soul of her nation. It was never captured, never touched, and to this day, it remains a sacred emblem of Ashanti pride. Yaa Asantewaa, spirit continues to rise in songs, in schools, in movements of liberation across the world. She reminds us that leadership comes in many forms, and that the heartbeat of a people is strongest when it is guarded by the brave. History often remembers conquerors, kings, and empires, but sometimes it is a single voice, steady, bold, and rooted in truth, that leaves the deepest mark. Yaa Asantewaa stood when others sat. She fought when others folded. And she rose, not with an army of conquest, but with an army of purpose, to defend not just a stool of gold, but the soul of her people. Her legacy is not carved into marble walls or maps. It lives in the hearts of the Ashanti, in the voices of those who still fight for justice, and in the powerful rhythm of women who lead with fire in their eyes and history in their blood. She reminds us that when one woman rises, a people rise. When one voice dares to speak, silence ends. And when a queen defends the soul of a nation, no empire, no exile, no erasure can ever take it away. Yaa Asantewaa, queen, warrior, guardian of the stool. Her story does not end. It begins again every time we remember